Jai Hind everyone. Welcome to my YouTube channel which is Explore Yourselves, Banking and General Knowledge, etc. Today I'm going to describe my short story, Finding Joy in Everyday Small Moments. The alarm rang at 5:30 in the morning, but Arindam had already been awake for several minutes. Through the half-open window, the cool breeze carried the sweet scent of wet earth after a light drizzle during the night. The sky was still wrapped in shades of deep blue, but only a faint orange glow appeared in the eastern horizon. Instead of immediately reaching for his phone as he usually did, he remained still for a while, listening to the birds welcoming the new day. The melody was simple, almost unnoticed by most people rushing through life, yet it somehow filled the silence with unexpected comfort. He smiled without any particular reason, realizing that the morning itself had gifted in peace before the day's responsibilities even began. His mother was already in the kitchen preparing tea. The familiar sound of boiling water, the gentle clinking of cups, and the aroma of freshly crushed ginger floated through the house. Arindam accepted the steaming cup and quietly stood beside the balcony railing. They exchanged only a few words, but neither felt the need for a lengthy conversation. Sometimes sharing silence with someone who understands you carries more warmth than endless discussions. Watching the neighborhood slowly awaken, they noticed newspaper boys cycling down empty streets, milk vendors greeting familiar faces, and children sleepily rubbing their eyes while preparing for school. Ordinary scenes suddenly felt extraordinary because they happened every day without asking for appreciation. During breakfast, Arindam noticed a tiny sparrow hopping confidently near the dining room window. Instead of shooing it away, his mother placed a few grains of rice outside. Within moments, another sparrow arrived, followed by two more. Their cheerful chirping transformed an ordinary breakfast into something unexpectedly delightful. Arindam laughed as one little bird boldly stared at him before flying away. He realized that joy often arrives quietly, never announcing itself with grand celebrations, but simply appearing in the company of small living creatures sharing the same morning. The journey to work usually felt long and tiring. Traffic lights, crowded buses, impatient commuters, and constant noise had become routine. That morning, however, Arindam decided to keep his headphones inside his bag. Instead of drowning the world with music, he observed people around him. A little girl proudly showed her drawing to her father while waiting for the bus. An elderly gentleman carefully folded his newspaper before offering his seat to a pregnant woman. Two school friends burst into uncontrollable laughter over a joke nobody else understood. None of these moments changed the world, yet together they painted a beautiful picture of kindness, innocence, and humanity quietly surviving amidst daily chaos. As the bus crossed the bridge, sunlight reflected upon the river below like thousands of tiny diamonds dancing on the surface. Several fishermen patiently cast their nets birds, while white birds circled overhead. Arindam realized he had crossed this bridge hundreds of times but had rarely looked outside the window. Life had always pushed him towards tomorrow, making him forget the beauty existing in today's journey. That brief glimpse of nature remained in his mind for a long time after the bus reached its destination. Inside the office, deadlines, meetings, emails, and endless paperwork quickly filled the morning. During a short tea break, one of his colleagues distributed homemade sweets prepared by his grandmother. Everyone paused their work for a few minutes, sharing stories about childhood festivals and favorite family recipes. Laughter echoed across the office floor, replacing the constant clicking of keyboards. For a brief period, job titles disappeared, leaving behind only human beings enjoying sweet memories together. The sweetness of the dessert lasted only seconds, but the happiness created by those conversations remained throughout the day. Late that afternoon, Arindam accidentally spilled water on important documents. Expecting criticism, he immediately apologized. Instead, his senior calmly smiled and said, "Mistakes happen, let's solve it together." Those simple words removed the burden of anxiety that had built him within him. He realized that compassion often costs nothing, yet it can rescue someone from hours of unnecessary stress. The kindness shown in a single sentence became one of the brightest memories of his week. On his way home, dark clouds gathered unexpectedly. Before long, rain poured heavily across the city. Instead of becoming irritated, Arindam stood beneath a small roadside tea stall with several strangers waiting for the rain to slow down. The tea seller cheerfully served steaming cups while everyone exchanged stories about unpredictable weather. A young boy stretched out his hand to catch raindrops, laughing as if every drop were a magical gift. Soon, even adults smiled at his excitement. The rain delayed everyone's journey, but it also created an unexpected community among people who would probably never meet again. As evening approached, electricity suddenly went out across the neighborhood. Instead of scrolling endlessly through social media, families stepped outside their homes. Children invented games beneath the moonlight, while grandparents narrated stories from decades ago. Neighbors who usually exchanged for quick greetings spent hours talking beneath the open sky. Without realizing it, everyone rediscovered conversations that modern technology had quietly replaced. Darkness, instead of bringing inconvenience, illuminated forgotten relationships. The following Sunday, Arindam visited a nearby public park. Elderly people walked slowly along tree-lined paths while practicing gentle breathing practice exercises. Young couples sat quietly beneath the flowering trees. A group of children chased colorful butterflies with endless determination despite never catching them. Nearby, an artist patiently painted the landscape while a musician softly played flute beneath a large banyan tree. None of these people seemed concerned about achieving extraordinary success. During those few hours, they simply allowed themselves to exist peacefully within the beauty surrounding them. Arindam sat on a wooden bench, watching leaves gently fall with the afternoon breeze. Every leaf followed a different path before touching the ground. He wondered whether happiness resembled those falling leaves, beautiful precisely because each moment lasted only briefly. Trying to hold every joyful experience forever would be impossible, but appreciating each one while it existed made life richer than constantly worrying about what might disappear tomorrow. One afternoon, while returning from work, Arindam noticed a roadside bookseller arranging old novels and magazines beneath a faded blue umbrella. Curious, he stopped to browse through the collection. Many books carried handwritten names of previous owners, tiny notes in the margins, and faded bookmarks left between forgotten pages. And one old novel contained a dried flower carefully preserved decades earlier. Someone had once treasured that flower enough to place it inside a book, hoping it would remain there forever. Although the stranger's identity remained unknown, Arindam smiled at the thought that even memories could travel through time, quietly touching another person's heart years later. The neighborhood grocery shop had always been crowded, yet that evening the owner greeted every customer with genuine warmth despite working long hours. When an elderly woman realized she had forgotten a small amount of money, the shopkeeper simply smiled and said she could pay later. No argument, no embarrassment, only trust. Watching this simple exchange reminded Arindam that faith between people still existed, even in a world often described as increasingly selfish. Such gestures rarely appear in headlines, but they strengthen the invisible threads holding communities together. One weekend morning, Arindam decided to cook breakfast for his parents. The kitchen quickly turned into a battlefield of spilled flour, uneven vegetables, and slightly burnt toast. Everyone laughed at his lack of cooking skills. The meal was far from perfect, but yet his parents praised the effort more than the taste. They spent nearly an hour sharing breakfast, talking about old family vacations, childhood mischief, and dreams that had changed over the years. The food disappeared quickly, but the laughter around the dining table remained one of the happiest memories they shared. Several weeks later, the city celebrated a local cultural festival. Streets filled with colorful decorations, music floated through the air, and food stalls attracted families from every neighborhood. Arindam watched children excitedly choosing balloons while elderly couples slowly admired traditional performances. A street musician played an old melody on a violin, and within minutes, complete strangers stopped to listen together. Nobody asked about each other's profession, religion, or social status. For those few moments, everyone simply became listeners united by music. Joy needed no invitation, it naturally gathered wherever hearts remained open. During another ordinary workday, Arindam received a handwritten thank you note from a customer whose problem had been solved weeks earlier. The note contained only a few sentences expressing gratitude for patience and kindness. In an age dominated by digital messages, the handwritten words felt surprisingly personal. He folded the note carefully and kept it inside his diary. It reminded him that even routine responsibilities could become meaningful when performed with sincerity rather than obligation. As winter gradually arrived, mornings became colder. One day, Arindam noticed an elderly man feeding stray dogs near the railway station before having his own breakfast. The animals wagged their tails joyfully, recognizing the familiar face long before he reached them. The man explained that the dogs had no calendar, no bank account, and no certainty about tomorrow's meal, but they still greeted every sunrise with excitement. Their gratitude for a simple piece of bread seemed greater than many people's appreciation for abundance. Arindam walked away carrying an important lesson about contentment. One evening, he climbed to the rooftop after dinner. City lights sparked below while countless stars quietly filled the sky above. Airplanes crossed distant clouds like tiny moving stars. Somewhere nearby, someone practiced the flute, and the melody drifted gently across rooftops. Arindam realized that despite living in the same house for years, he had rarely spent time simply watching the night sky. The universe had always offered its silent performance without charging an entrance fee or demanding applause. A few months later, Arindam began carrying a small notebook wherever he went. Whenever something beautiful happened, a stranger's smile, blooming flowers, a heartfelt conversation, a rainbow after rain, or a child's laughter, he wrote a few lines describing the moment. Initially, the notebook seemed ordinary, but gradually it became a collection of everyday miracles. Whenever difficult days arrived, reading those entries reminded him that happiness had never truly disappeared. It had only become temporarily hidden beneath worry and routine. Spring transformed the neighborhood into a colorful garden. Trees once standing bare suddenly filled with fresh green leaves and delicate blossoms. Butterflies danced from flower to flower while bees busily continued their work without seeking recognition. Watching nature patiently renew itself after every season taught Arindam that difficult periods were just temporary. Just as winter eventually surrendered to spring, sorrow often made space for hope when given enough time. One afternoon, while waiting at a crossing, traffic stopped for several minutes. Most drivers impatiently checked their watches or sounded their horns. Arindam looked towards a nearby field where children flew handmade kites. Their excitement each time the kite rose higher each erased any frustration caused by the delay. Time had not been wasted after all, it had simply been exchanged for an unexpected opportunity to witness pure happiness. As months passed, Arindam gradually noticed changes in himself. He no longer rushed through every meal. He greeted neighbors by name instead of offering hurried nods. He spent weekends visiting parks, reading books beneath trees, and helping his parents with household chores. None of these activities increased his salary or social status, yet they enriched his daily life in ways achievements alone had never had. He understood that fulfillment often grows quietly within ordinary routines rather than extraordinary accomplishments. One rainy evening, while sheltering beneath a bus stop, Arindam met a young college student who worried constantly about future success. They spoke nearly for 30 minutes while waiting for the rain to ease. Before leaving, Arindam shared one simple thought: people often postpone happiness until they reach some distant destination, forgetting that life continues happening during the journey itself. The student smiled thoughtfully, thanked him, and boarded the next bus. Whether those words changed anything remain unknown, but sharing hope with another person felt rewarding in itself. Years later, when Arindam looked back through his notebook, he realized it contained no records of expensive purchases, prestigious awards, or extraordinary adventures. Instead, it overflowed with descriptions of warm cups of tea, gentle rain, quiet conversations, blooming flowers, handwritten notes, birds singing at sunrise, shared laughter, acts of kindness, skies, family meals, and countless ordinary experiences that had quietly shaped a meaningful life. Finally understood that joy rarely arrives through dramatic announcements. More often, it patiently waits inside everyday moments, hoping someone will pause long enough to notice. On another peaceful morning, Arindam opened his window as sunlight gently entered the room. The same birds sang familiar songs, the same breeze carried the same scent of flowers, and the neighborhood slowly awakened just as it had countless times before. Yet nothing felt repetitive anymore. Every sunrise appeared unique because it had learned to observe rather than merely exist. Every ordinary day carried endless possibilities to discover another reason to smile, another opportunity to express kindness, another chance to appreciate the simple privilege of being alive. In that quiet realization, without seeking perfection or constant excitement, life itself became the greatest source of everyday happiness. Disclaimer: this story is a work of fiction created for inspirational and entertainment purposes. The characters, situations, conversations, and events are imaginary, though they reflect emotions and experiences that many people may relate to in everyday life. The story is not intended to provide us psychological, medical, financial, or professional advice. Readers are encouraged to enjoy it as a gentle reminder that happiness can often be found in life's simplest moments, while recognizing that every individual's journey and circumstances are unique. Thank you very much for your patience. Please like and share this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel.